Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And my guest today has done an awful lot of thinking because his life is so epic. It is really, really fun. We're going to learn a ton. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for being on and show everybody your t-shirt.
Got my Livian shirt on
Got
today.
the Livian shirt on today. So Sean, tell us a little bit about you. Where were you born?
So my story is really interesting in a sense that I'm actually a native New Mexican. My dad was in the Air Force. I was born at Cannon Air Force Base, which happens to be in New Mexico. And so that's where I was born. But like any military brat, we moved to Germany. We came back to Albuquerque, moved to Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. And that's where my dad retired. And I graduated high school and college in that area.
Huh. So what brought you back to Albuquerque?
A job, So I graduated college and was looking for a job post 9/11. Had a degree in finance, and no one was hiring in the finance world. It was kind of upside down. With if anybody knows what's happened, it was like right past the dot-com bust, and then of course you had 9/11, and no one was really hiring in the financial world. So I took a job on a defense contract on Kirtland. Said, hey, I wanted to be near the mountains anyways. And so that's what brought me back out here.
Okay. And so that was 2010, 2011?
No. I moved out here in March of 2003. So I literally just hit my 20-year mark of being back here in Albuquerque.
Oh, wow. Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Okay. So coming back has worked out pretty well. So how did you go from the finance job that you got to getting into real estate?
So my job wasn't even in finance. It was a defense contract. I actually was working in like IT, which within 6 months I knew was not for me. And so I just started exploring. I actually almost moved back to Illinois to St. Louis for a financial job. And I did not. I was like one of 5 candidates. I didn't get the job. Looked at a job at Morgan Stanley. Didn't feel good about it. But I somehow connected with a qualifying broker with a company called the Vaughn Company. Started exploring getting my real estate license. And so in 2004, I got my real estate license. So literally a year later, I started off part-time. So I got my real estate license part-time with the Vaughn Company, who's no longer in business in New Mexico.
Right. Okay. So you started off part-time. What did that look like?
So I was able to work 6 to 3 o'clock at my current job. And I would come to the office every day after around 3 o'clock, and I would, back then in 2004 and 5, like floor duty was still like a really big thing in offices. So I would just sit floor until like 6 o'clock every day. And then on weekends I did open houses, I did floor duty, I shadowed agents, so I did everything. So for me, it was like a 7-day a week, and real estate was like the part-time gig in that sense. And so that kind of was my flow until 2006. That summer, I went full-time real estate and ditched the job. I saved up money, lived pretty lean. I ended up building a house in 2005 while I was still employed and had a W-2 income. And so I did all those moves. And then by 2006, I decided to go full-time.
Okay. So, gosh, there's so much to unpack there. For somebody that's new, getting into real estate, and they're listening to your story, and they're saying, okay, you had a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
Then you did real estate. And then after real estate, on the weekends, you would do open houses. Mm-hmm. And then you would shadow agents. Why did you have to work so hard? I thought real estate was supposed to be fun.
I think one thing that I've never lost was just that I've always had a growth mindset. So I've always just wanted to learn. And I'm still like a big learner in real estate and business. So I think you have to find mentors, and you have to really just I had that natural hunger to wanting to learn more. I wanted to know everything. And the only way to do that is to put yourself with people that are doing everything.
Okay. So who were first off, how did you know to get mentors?
I think it was just a natural instinct, actually. I worked for a small independent company. They happened to be the largest independent company in New Mexico at the time. But there was nothing special. Like, I didn't have the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book at the time. But I know that I I saw people that were busy, and I knew that if I wanted to learn how to be busy like them, I had to find out what they were doing. And I was never afraid to ask questions, and I think for me, the thing that I knew that I needed to do was I just needed to be in the office. Like, so if I wasn't at my job, I would be at the office, and I got to know the agents, and I would just ask them questions. I'd ask them, like, how did you get that business? What are you doing? Like, how are you using it? And so I had an early mentor. He's actually the reason why I was able to go full time is he was using a system at the time called Market Leader, and I think it's still kind of around. But in its time, it was like one of the bigger tools at the time. And so he was buying leads online, and he needed somebody to help work them. So I got an opportunity to learn early on how to work leads and to convert leads, and so he was an early mentor that really he was kind of trying to build a business. So it was really good to have somebody to shadow like that, and then he gave me an opportunity early on.
Okay,
kind of like today's team. Really, if you want to think of it, it wasn't really that way. I mean, people have to understand in 2005 and 6 and 7, there weren't these teams around like we have at Keller Williams or other companies today. That concept didn't really start gravitating and becoming the norm in our marketplace until probably like 2010, 11, 12. But so it was an early. That's what mentorship to me looks like. That's what I make my team look like today. Is really a mentorship model. But that's what really today's team is. It's a mentorship model.
Absolutely. And what would you assume the difference would be for someone who comes into this and I'm super independent and I don't want to be on a team. I want to do it on my own. And then someone else who's more humble and says, I know I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to submit myself on your team, for example. What the outcome difference? 5 years. What difference would it make?
So think about a doctor. Does a doctor get thrown into the surgery room day one? No. And like when it comes to helping people buy and sell real estate, like it's considered to be their number one financial move. To think that you can go do it alone, it's quite a feat. So I believe, I gotta look at my career and I apprenticed, if you want to look at it that way. That's what being mentored means is you're apprenticing and learning how to do real estate. And I can tell you, like, you can really hurt somebody financially if you don't know what you're doing. And so I think people look at the dollar amount and they get so attached to that outcome. And it's a really bad way to look at getting into real estate is, yes, real estate's like none other business. No one tells you how much money you can make. No one puts a fixed ceiling on you on what you can do and how you can do it. There's so many different ways to do it. But I think in your first 3 to 5 years, you should do it in an environment that's going to help teach you. And it's not even just the amount of transactions you do. It's the amount of transactions that your team does, that you get exposed to. So again, like I go back to that, look at a doctor, right? Like we can make doctor money in real estate, right? And there are people that are making, like they have very big businesses in real estate, like multiple $1 million revenue businesses.
More than most doctors.
And yeah, and again, like we have the ability to do that. However, like everybody wants it right away, and it's that like got to have it now, or what do they call that? It's that whole mindset of like no one wants to wait, and people think they should graduate college and make 6 figures right away. And I think it's the same thing in real estate. And yes, there's some people that get in and they're rock stars. Like they just naturally have really great spears and really great databases, and they're able to reap immediately from that. But I would say that's not the norm. And if you're a newer agent, you should really look at having the right culture of mentorship and really learning. And again, I think when people look at teams, they should look at what does that team produce? Like, what am I going to be exposed to early on? Like, it's the conversations. It's how they manage their database. It's how they manage their sphere of influence and take care of their past clients or take care of the referrals. It's all the little things that you get to just learn. Like it's like looking under the hood, right? And you get to be a part of that culture and environment early on, and give it 2 to 5 years, and then think about doing your own business. You are building your own business while you're there. That's the thing. And if you get into partnership with the right team, you can build your sphere up, and then you can take that sphere with you. That's how it works on my team. And so the the best compliment that I can ever get is when somebody moves on and their business is bigger than when they started with me, right? That's what you ultimately want.
Absolutely. Zig Ziglar, you can always get what you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And so this heart of mentorship that you have, I see it go throughout your world. Mm-hmm. Where did that come from?
I think you get to a point in business, and so for me, it was like 2012. So to kind of give you, again, back to my storyline, is I stayed at the Vaughn Company until 2008. And in that year, that was a pivotal year, right? Like the whole industry was upside down. I haven't decided to make a move to Remax. And that 2008 was tough no matter where you were in real estate. Like there isn't a real estate agent. If you survived that year and kept your license in 09 and 10, like you won. And I did, luckily. I mean, the truth of the matter is I actually rebuilt my resume and took a part-time job for like 90 days thinking like, what am I going to do? And things pulled out in 2009. Really, there was a lot of things that happened that helped that market out. But I went to Remax and I had another mentor, and we really formed a partnership in marketing. So again, going back to mentorship, and he came from a sales world, a sales background, and at that point he had been licensed for like 10 years. His name's Pete Veras. He's still active in real estate to a degree, and he was another really important mentor of mine. And he taught me really about system. He was really the most developed systematically and with marketing. And then he had a lot of sales background. I don't have a sales background, so everything that I've had to learn in sales, and believe me, like when I talk about sales, it's learning how to understand people's personalities and how to really figure out people's wants and needs and things. Like it's sometimes like working with clients, you have to peel the layers of the onion out to really get to how you can help them, right? And so that's where the sales part of real estate is how do you ask the right questions? How do you really build the right rapport and build the right amount of trust with somebody? Because in real estate, like there's an awful lot of trust that has to be involved in allowing somebody to help you make a financial move. And so those things are important. So I learned a lot of that with Remax and forming that partnership. And that led me to like 2012. That's when I decided to break off and make my own team. And I wanted to be 100% creator. So you got to think, I was full-time for 6 years, been licensed for 8, and then I finally started my own team. And that, through starting to build that team, when you decide to build a team, right, you are taking responsibility to be a leader and to teach somebody, and you're taking responsibility for helping somebody to make this a career. So when you really think about it, and early on, like this didn't really hit me until like I struggled with helping people get successful in real estate. And so for me, I took that really personal. I really wanted somebody to succeed in real estate and to have a lot of results. And like, so for me, it has always been again, going back to learning based and wanting to really learn. In 2012, I started doing different types of coaching, and part of that was like how to build a team and how to be a leader and how to bring value into your people that trust you to help them build a business in real estate. That's what they're doing when they join your team. And so, our whole journey is self-leadership, and self-leadership perceives leadership. So your leadership lid for yourself ultimately allows the amount of people in your world to reach their potential. But if you don't raise your own self-leadership lid, the people that want to come in your world will never stay if there's no room for them to grow and learn. That's the thing that I've learned, and that's the reason why I've been partnered and done things in business with people that I have, is because they had such a high leadership lid, and they had so much experience and things like that. And so ultimately, when somebody looks to being in business with you and your team, you need to be able to provide that same level of value. And so I guess as my business has evolved, I've always wanted to be able to bring really big value, because when I see people win, especially when they're on my team, like it's very rewarding. Like it's a very rewarding thing. And again, it kind of comes back to my overall like goal and mission of having a team, is that I want to create somebody's business, and if they decide to go on their own, that it's better when they leave than when they first came to my team.
Shoo, that's a lot. That's an awful lot of responsibility to take on. Why Why do it? What's the biggest reason that you would take on a team versus being, say, an independent?
Well, it's leverage, right? And so for me, and this is people that want to be individuals or people that, that are starting out into the world. Like, to me is I value time more than I value money. And so I control my time. I control my weekends. I control my evenings. I control the clientele that I work with. And I've gotten to that point because I've been able to help any business that isn't natural to me. I'm able to provide for my team. And you get to a point, like I think in 2012, I did like 65 or 68 real estate transactions. And that was in a different world than today, like Zillow wasn't as big as it is today, for an example. So like what the consumer expects from a communication and like show it right now thing, that's not how it was in 2012. And the other thing too is listings lasted on the market too, right? So like it's a whole different marketplace at this point. But in 2012, it wasn't uncommon to go show 8 to 12 houses on a Saturday, right? And you're lucky if you can do that in like 2 weeks for a client right now, just because of the availability. So it's just different. So you could literally work a 10-hour day on a Saturday showing houses to like 3 or 4 clients. And I did that a lot. So for me, it came more down to time and leverage. And so I knew that my book of business had gotten so big that I was able to start leveraging now. And the best way to do that is, people call them buyer's agents. I don't use that terminology. I just call them partners, agent partners. So we have like junior partners, senior partners based off of experience level. But in early days, like, yes, naturally you want to give your buyer business so you can focus on listing business. And it makes more sense. You get more leverage by being a selling agent. And that's predominantly what my role is on the sales side of my team today is I'm the lead listing agent and 80% of my business is listings. And so you get to that point. And so, 19 years in the business at this point, I'm able to do that. And the value that I bring is the size of my database, my experience. And that's why, when you get to a point, like you don't have to do it alone. I think honestly, having a real estate business would be boring doing it alone. And it's fun. Like I like having a team. We're really building culture. We like to play hard just as much as we work hard. And so there's some rewarding benefits to that.
Absolutely. No doubt. So what would you say? You said your leadership has to keep growing, or as Gary Keller puts it, your umbrella has to be big enough for their umbrellas to fit underneath there. What are some of the quick leadership tips you have for people? Where do I start if I want to be a leader?
If you want to be a leader, you have to realize, gosh dang it. It was actually one of my quotes that I took, one of my things I took from, but if you don't, leadership is partnership. So if you are not open to partnerships, really there's no such thing as leadership. But in order to be a leader, you need to lead yourself first. So you need to look at how you take care of your body, how you take care of your finances, how you take care of your family, the things that you consume, right? Like, are you consuming books that are bringing you knowledge and it can be, doesn't necessarily need to be business. It can be things that can help you in any different facet of your life. But I think you got to be able to be leading by example, is a big piece. And I've gone through a big change in that in the last 2 years personally, as well, and I think, for leaders, it's being willing to be vulnerable, right? Like we don't have all the answers. We oftentimes face more failure than success. And so there's a lot more trial and error. But I think when you decide to take on leadership, sometimes you got to blaze the path, right? And so when you're growing your own self-leadership, you're going to learn some things you're not necessarily going to like about yourself, right? But the cool thing about that is you can decide to pivot and change and eliminate things and be willing to take on, be accepting of certain things and some things you need to get rid of, right? And then also being able to kind of share that with your team, that journey, that path. And so I found when you become more vulnerable, people tend to also be willing to be vulnerable with you. So I think showing up and having wanting to have this ego or having this, people perceive you a certain way, isn't going to serve anybody, so being authentic is a part of that leadership journey.
So what does being vulnerable look like?
Being willing to admit when you make a mistake, right? Or being willing to listen. So sometimes that's more important as a leader than talking too, right? So it's really being able to listen to the people that are around you and finding out what's not working, what may work for you may not work for others, right? And that's the one thing that I learned early on is you're never going to get anybody to do everything exactly the way you do it. And so I think oftentimes people start building a real estate team and they think that they're going to show up like you do and are going to treat everybody the way that you do. And at the end of the day, everybody has their own personality and everybody has a way that they respond to certain situations. And going back to that vulnerability, if you're vulnerable to share, like if you made a mistake, like with a client, or if you had a bad experience or you had a loss, like I just shared with my team this morning, there's a listing I didn't get, right? Like it's also showing like, hey, I know that a lot of my agents they've been struggling with appointments and getting conversion or getting people to commit to them. And it's like, well, hey, that happens to me too, right? Like I've experienced this and this is how I try to overcome it, or this is how I learn to be accepting of not getting a client or finding out that they bought a house with somebody else or they decided to list with somebody else, like that, you're not always going to win, and being how to accept that. And that's the thing that I think is really hard in real estate, people being able to accept like their failures. But as we know, and like we hear like in the Keller Williams world, like oftentimes you have to fail a lot in order to win. And I think in your beginning of your career, you're going to fail more than you're going to win. And don't get discouraged, right? Like real estate can be a very discouraging business if you let it be.
Oh gosh, yes. It can suck the life completely out of you, or it can give you the life that you now enjoy. Mm-hmm. This epic life. And I know your life mostly as a picture on Facebook, and I see that your mom is important to you. Like, how do you have time for family and have a business as huge as you do?
So we all got 24 hours in a day, right? And so again, I've been able to, again, with experience, I'm very systematic, right? So I think the thing that, I talk to my team is, what other job would you be able to have that wouldn't require you to come in from 8 to 5? Like if you weren't doing real estate, what would you be doing? And most likely 80% of the time, you're not going to be self-employed. You're going to be working for an employer, and they're going to expect you to show up at a certain time, at a certain place, and put in a certain amount of time. So why wouldn't you do it in real estate? So that's my first approach is I treat every day, like, and I don't even have to think it. Like I'm going to be at the office around 8 to 8:30. Our team huddles at 9. And then we go, and I have a very like my business is very predictable from like where I'm going to be at, how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to structure it. And so I'm just very deliberate that way. Now, it doesn't mean that there's days that I don't go take like a 2-hour lunch, or I go, leave a little bit earlier to go do something fun. Like I definitely allow that, but I don't abuse it. And the cool thing is when you are successful, you can take the trip, you can take the vacation, you can take the time off. Like I traveled 60 days on the road. 30 days of that was for business mastermind, but that was fun. Like that was fun. That was like a reward, but also an experience. I was able to bring back value for myself, bring back value for my team. But you're able to do those things and have the flexibility to do it because you've been so systematic and so consistent. And so that's why I'm able to have those things, is because I've just been very consistent with everything, and just being able to be accountable to that is a key. So
you spent 30 days of your year masterminding with other business professionals. Mm-hmm. And I think someone on the outside looking in who can't possibly fathom the level of success that you have achieved by having really good habits, like really, really good habits. Golly, I'm just going all over the place because when you have these habits and you achieve these things, and someone else is looking in at your life and they're saying, how do you like it? It can't compete. You only have 24 hours in a day. You spent 30 of those days going on these masterminding trips. Why? At this point, aren't you successful enough? Why are you still growing?
Well, you're either growing or you're dying, right? And that's just like the law of nature. Think about it. There's nothing in this planet that doesn't grow or die. Nothing stays stagnant, right? Even like the Earth's crust, right? It's always growing, like it's moving, right? So everything's either growing or dying. So as a human being, like if we start getting in spirituality mode here, like we're either a human, we're human beings. So what's the being part? And if you stay stagnant and you don't add anything to it, it's like a flower. Like your being is more like a flower. If you don't provide water to it, it's going to die. So to me, you need to be consuming positive things that are going to change your thinking or allow you to grow. Like you need to be consuming things that are going to put you.
Examples?
Podcasts, books.
Who? What podcast?
I listen to Ed Milet a lot. I listen to Lewis Howes. Rob Dyrdek's been a new favorite of mine. His are like really short, like 20-minute podcasts. So if you're into shorter ones, like I can consume those a lot of times on my way to and from work. His name again? Rob Dyrdek. He owns. Rob and Big. You can Google that. It was like an old MTV show, but then he has a lot of other cool. I mean, he's just a really big entrepreneur at this point too. So I consume a lot of things that are kind of based into that. But it's the books, but then it's more than that, right? So like, why mastermind? Well, I want to be surrounded by people that have the same growth mindset, but have different viewpoints and have different experiences and have different backgrounds. And I think you do got to get out of your own like environment. And when I mean environment, get out of the Keller Williams office and go mastermind with other agents and other offices in your own local community, or other business leaders in your own local community. And the same thing like in real estate mode. And I've been masterminding for the last 11 years. So I've done some form of coaching, some form of masterminding for a decade. And I found that I've always gotten the most value from those experiences, meeting people in different parts of the country, sometimes the world, that have different points of views, or they're doing something different, right? And I think we can all agree that our market and our industry changes constantly. And so if you don't find out what people are doing in different areas, then how are you going to be able to change and grow, right? And so I think you have to always put yourself in a position to learn.
Well, Jim Rohn says you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with, and the one you spend the most time with is you. Mm-hmm. And so how do you manage you? Do you have a morning routine?
I do. For me, it's, and it varies. Like, and I'll be honest, like I go in and out of changing it up too, right? And I think it's having the acknowledgement that sometimes you got to change your routine, but it is early. It's, sometime usually between 5 and 5:30 is when I try to get up. And sometimes it's meditating, sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's just going straight to the gym or going straight on a run. And so like that's, but it's some form of, something that's focusing on me. So it's either journaling, meditating, even already like reading early in the morning. And then I like to get out and either go for a run. I have a bike on a trainer stand that I'll ride sometimes. I'll go to the gym a lot. So I think moving your body for 45 minutes to an hour is really important too. So that's something that's pretty consistent for me.
Okay. Any other hints for the people that are watching to help them have a more epic life?
I think your point was you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So I think you should audit that, and for every facet, right? So who do you surround yourself at work or at business? Like, who are your top 5 people that you're with the most? Your personal friend group. For me, like men that are dads, it could be people in your spirituality world. It could be in your hobby interest, right? And I think here in our company, we have like a handful of people that we're really getting into investing in real estate, right? So like if that's something that's really important to you, surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. So if you want to be an investor in real estate, you need to be hanging out with investors in real estate. Okay,
so in order for us to respect your drive time, we try to keep these at 30 minutes or under. So we're going to take a break here, and then we'll drop the other podcast on Friday. So please join us on Friday to hear the rest of what Sean has to share with us. The second half is really extra cool, especially towards the end where he goes into absolute details. Here's what you do step by step, and that's what you're looking for if you're listening to this podcast. So thanks.